Hi, this is Craig Haskell with the Value Hunt Academy. You're listening to another exclusive interview with a leading authority in the syndication of value-add real estate. We are speaking with Chris Hake, founder of Hake Capital, a successful real estate syndication company who has rapidly grown his company after overcoming a lot of challenges. Boy, let me tell you, after 20 years being in the business buying small properties, he recently decided to step up and buy bigger properties. For those of you who want to start buying bigger properties, Chris offers lots of great tips on how to break out. This is a real authentic interview where you get the real good, bad, and the ugly. In this interview with Chris, you will learn why he started a syndication business and how it's grown so quickly. A case study of a recent 32-unit syndication deal he closed. A big challenge that he had to get over to get started and how he overcame it. Why your Pitchbook deck is so important to your success. The number one thing you need to do when raising money. And also 3 big tips on getting started and achieving success. If you are a new syndicator wanting to start your syndication business, then you must listen to this high-value interview with Chris Hake. Chris is the ultimate doer. He's a bulldog. He's the real deal. Find out how you can learn from his rapid success. Hey, Chris, thanks for getting on and talking to us about the things you've been doing from the very start to what you're doing now. I'm looking forward to asking you some questions and get some feedback to help some of our value hounds that are trying to get in the syndication business. You jumped into it just recently and had a lot of success. We're going to go through a deal that you put together. But to share some background on you and where you came from, I wonder if you can, what was the starting point? How'd you get started? What's your backstory?
Okay, well, yeah, and I want to thank you again, Craig, for having this time today. I always enjoy sharing, some of the things that have, I've done over the years, and hopefully it'll help other people. And to kind of give you an idea, or your listeners, where I started, I unfortunately took a little bit longer than maybe the normal person to get started. I was 31 years old before I ever got in the real estate game. And, up until that point, I was probably doing what a lot of people did. I mean, I was out there, I was working hard, went to school right out of high school and went to college and did a few things, and really wasn't my bag. I just wanted to get into the working world. And I was working a lot of overtime. I was broke. I had debts from college like a lot of people do. I was out not only working overtime at the jobs I was working after I got out of college, but I was also building a network marketing business on the side because I was looking for something. I was not satisfied. And I was always watching stuff on TV, and I got pulled into the real estate world, or at least saw a glimpse of another opportunity from one of the late night, midnight infomercial, gurus, Carlton Sheets back in the 90s.
Yeah,
and I literally bought his course one Friday night, sitting in my little condo at midnight, and $99. Got it in the mail, and literally when I got it, I burned through the whole thing in probably 3 days. And I basically was a sponge. I was willing to do whatever. And I followed what he taught, and within 30 days, I had my first property. And I really got started from there. And, over the next probably 3 years, I built up to about 40 rental properties, and a lot of learning, a lot of time spent on top of not only working a job and working a business on the side and having a new family, and my wife was pregnant. I was doing what I needed to try to get me to the next level, and real estate became that.
So let me ask you, during that process of getting those 40 plus properties, what were some of the challenges you had to actually get started? Did you have fear? I know, having worked with you, you're a bulldog. But what are some of the challenges you had getting started?
Yeah, when I think about that, really the number one challenge that I remember vividly was I believed I had to have money when I was getting started, because there wasn't bigger pockets, and I didn't have all these different ways to learn, and I didn't have many, if any, coaches or mentors locally. So I believed I had to have money. And so when I got started, money was the thing that, I guess, kept me from getting started really quick, even though I guess some would say I did get started quick, but that was a mindset. I believed I had to have money. So that was my biggest challenge. I had the hunger. I had a big why. I was motivated. You mentioned about fear. I had faith. I just had faith that if I did this, I was gonna be successful. I was gonna make money. So those things never really stopped me. It was really the money. I believed I had to have money, and so I brought partners on. That's how I got started, and that got me around the money piece when I initially got started.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things we teach is, are you interested or are you committed? And you are committed. You have your game face on and you get stuff done, but there's a lot of people that just want to try it out and see how it goes, and they're never committed, so they end up quitting. But that's not you. That's a trait that's helped you become successful, is your willingness to put your game face on and go out there and kick some butt and get over the obstacles. We all have obstacles, right? There's a lot of obstacles in the way, and I'm putting together a new video about the design opportunity, about how to get around obstacles. But we all make mistakes, and we all learn from them, and so we just got to get in the game and play it like you are, and you've had a lot of success. So at some point you decided to step up and buy bigger properties. Why did you do that?
Yeah, so I guess there were kind of two phases in my life that I would say I stepped up to bigger properties. The first was back in the late 90s when I got started. And, I progressed from a condo to a couple duplexes to an 8-unit and a 10-unit. And then I kind of topped out when I got to about 40 units. And I think part of it was the market timing, and part of it was the partners I had decided they wanted to go different directions in their respective worlds. And what that did was kind of sent me in another path that did not lead me back to the multifamily world until right around the time I met you, which was only about, a year ago or so. And at that time, I was kind of buying single family rentals. And so this was only maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago. Yeah, probably 2 years ago, back in 2018. And I started buying single family homes because I wanted to get back into the rental market from what I had been doing, which was more rehabbing, wholesaling, flipping, that type of thing. And so we started buying single families, and we got to about 5 or 6 houses pretty quickly. And what became clear to me at that point was over my years of experience and, trying to really vault myself back into stepping up into buying bigger properties, I believed for a while that single families was the route to get there as opposed to bigger properties. And unfortunately, my mindset was that I stayed away from bigger properties because of one thing and one thing only, and that was property management. I just had some bad experiences in the past with property management, and I knew I wasn't a good property manager. It's just I know myself well enough to know that's not where I need to be, and I needed to have somebody else that I could count on, because I knew property management was such an important part of the puzzle to get into bigger stuff. And all along the lines of when I transitioned my mindset from single family to bigger multifamily was partially realizing that I knew I had the tools and the ability to find bigger. I just never was intentional about doing it. And I had found a property management company who was a good friend of mine, a local guy who had been doing that very successfully. And he just told me, if you find something big enough, I'll work with you on it. And so that gave me so much relief because I knew that was an important piece. So that really kind of got me into this latest property, which was a 32 unit. For some people, that's a small property. For some people, that's a huge property, and that was the next step for me into buying bigger. And that's really what prompted me to kind of take the next step. Was I felt comfortable with property management that I was able to put into place, and it gave me the green light for me to comfortably, jump back in and make it happen.
Okay, so how did you accomplish stepping up to the next level? What did you do? What were some of the things you did to get yourself trained and get the right support to jump into this business, right? Because apartments are businesses, right? You got income, you got expenses, you got to pay bills, you got to do maintenance. It's a business, and you got to know how to run that business. So it sounds like you got a good guy that knows how to run that business, and it's so important to the blocking and tackling of your investment to get a good property management company. So how did you actually accomplish this? What did you do to make the change?
Well, like everything I've done on my journey for the last 20 years in real estate, is I had to start associating and following with people, investors that are already in that space and that are doing what I want to do at my level or generally higher level. So I did what I would do in any other aspect of real estate that I've done over the years is I started digging around looking for, okay, who are the people in this space that are syndicating and doing multifamily? And I happened along Joe Fairless and Dan Hanford, who were literally within a month of me digging into all this, were having their multifamily summit, which was an event where it was online. It was 3 days. There was tons of content, tons of speakers. And as you know, that's where I met you. And so I really plugged into that because I knew if I wanted to play in that space and in that business world, I needed to learn from people who were already doing it at a high level. And so I met a lot of great people through the different sessions and classes that they held online. I think that was, last year in January 2018. And so I got plugged in, or maybe that was 2019. I don't know. It was recently. But I got plugged into all those guys. And after that event was over, I knew that if I really wanted to shortcut my learning curve and I wanted to, hit the ground running, I needed to find me somebody that I could latch onto from the form of a coach or a mentor. And really that's where I met you, Craig, because after listening to all the speakers for 3 days and identifying 5 that I thought would be a possible good fit for me to connect with after the event was over, you were the one that I think was the best fit for me. And I'm so glad that happened because after taking one of your Pitchbook, I think it was a 6-week boot camp. That was really the timely direction and guidance that, I needed to really help me with an essential piece of getting this going. And that was, working with kind of the mission and the statement of what I was doing and being able to project that out to others when I was raising money. And having a clear, intentional understanding of that. And so that's what I did. I surrounded myself with guys that were doing it and plugging into their events and getting direct coaching, mentoring. And that's really where you and I kind of got introduced.
Well, I want to reflect back because I remember you. I said you were a bulldog because we gave homework out and you were always done like way ahead of everybody. You got your Pitchbook done way ahead of everybody. You just have been working so hard and having your game face on, and I'm just so proud because it's so important to have success in this business, to be serious about this, and you are serious about this. You've gone on to, even before the course was over, you were out looking for deals and out there trying to raise money from debt and equity investors. You got a deal done. So I wonder if you could walk us through an example of the deal that you've repositioned, the 32-unit deal.
Yeah, well, that you're right. That happened during the 6-week course, and actually secured that under contract during that same time. And so that was, like I said, that 3-day multifamily summit was what really got my blood flowing and started pushing me in the direction of what I needed to do to get out there and start letting more people know that this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for multifamily. I'm looking for off-market deals. And I started digging into my network, and I started meeting people for coffee. And in the beginning, I didn't have the Pitchbook to actually show people, but midway through, as I was finishing it with your help, I started using that as a tool when I was sitting down with people to not only talk about, future lending opportunities on future deals, but also what kind of deals I was looking for. And sure enough, one of those meetings for coffee turned into someone, calling me and letting me know about a possible opportunity that was off market. Nobody else knew about it. And, I literally put the rest of the puzzle pieces together with over the next week or two, and got to meet with the seller and, submit an offer. And there's a whole big story behind that and how all that played out. But suffice to say, I was a successful bidder with that project, and we got it under contract. And then I started taking the next steps about trying to figure out how I was going to actually close on the deal with the necessary funds and how I was going to structure it. And again, that's where a lot of that guidance came from, you and as well as other folks that I had met through the 3-day summit. And we literally closed on that back in June of this year, 2019, and had been, kind of running forward. And now we're looking, actively for the next project.
Well, yeah, it's a 32-unit deal, and you paid $1.8 million for it. I think it was about $1.8 million.
Yep.
And you you had to raise the debt, right? You had to raise some money. It was more on the debt side. You didn't really have to come up with much money on this deal.
Yeah, correct. I didn't. When it's all said and done, I went through a lot of different structures with a lot of different people that I met with, all the way from other people that I looked at as possible general partners with myself, in talking with multiple banks and in talking with private money lenders about, the opportunity. And so my situation may be a little different than some. Is I was already, buying and flipping and doing rehabbing for years prior. So I had some experience and relationships with people who already were lenders for me on a smaller scale, but they were lenders for me. And when this opportunity came up, I just went right back to a bunch of those people, and was able to structure the deal in such a way that I was able to raise enough money to bring in, I think it was 5 investors that came in from a debt standpoint, simple interest type of investment, which is what they were, used to doing with me for years and years on single-family homes. And so that was good, but the trick of the whole thing, where it really took a lot of time, energy, and effort, was structuring it from the bank side. I was not bankable myself for this first deal. I needed some more horsepower and folks that could come in and be in a position where, their personal financial statement along with mine would be enough to get the banks to, buy into the deal and lend. And so that's what I did. And I was able to pull in 2 other folks in very limited roles, gave them an equity position, a small piece of the overall pie, and I retained the majority of it. And at the same time, all the monies that were raised, all the way from the bank financing to the investor debt, funded 100% of the project for the acquisition and repairs that we had slated once we took control of it in June. And so, worked out really, really well. It's a great model.
Yeah, and I see you sent me over some notes, and I see that you bought a nice value deal. Rents were way low, and that just doubles your returns. And so I'm so happy for you. You had to raise
definitely a value add.
Yeah, you had to raise $600,000 to $700,000 from private investors, right? It's on the debt side,
right.
But you still had to raise it, right? So.
Oh, absolutely.
You put together a Pitchbook was well put together, and did that help you out at all with talking to these investors and getting them to buy into what you're doing?
Yeah, I did have that conversation when I sat down with each one and talked about the opportunity. Some of these people I had done deals with, I knew all of them within my sphere and my different networks, but the Pitchbook definitely helped me, and as much as it helped me sitting down with someone with the final polished version, the bigger thing that I feel that I got from it the first time around was because what you taught me to do and what I really got from the training that I learned was that building that pitch deck and all the time, energy, and effort it took to build that, the process of going through it and what I learned, because we become so much smarter when we, the education process, right? I mean, when we're building a pitch deck or when we're going through any type of deal, you learn so much through the process. And my mindset of all the different things that I had researched and gone through to identify my market and where I thought the best opportunities were really came through the conversations that I had with the different folks, because I had probably talked to, I don't know, maybe, 6 or 7 or 8 different folks about the opportunity. And it was right for some and it wasn't right for others. But I was very clear with what I was doing. The Pitchbook gave me that confidence because of the work I did prior to ever sitting down with people. So doing the homework up front and building that before I ever had a deal was just, I just can't speak enough to how valuable that was, a piece of the puzzle as I met with people.
Fantastic. You're so right that the Pitchbook is something you can put down and talk to investors about instead of just talking about whatever. You got to focus, and they can see the problem you're solving and how you're going to make money for them. And you've had success with it. Others have had the same success, so that's good. So you're doing great, man. You started with 20 some years ago, and look at where you're at now, and you're stepping up to buy bigger properties and raise money and just take it to the next level. So I wonder if you can give us maybe 3 or 4 tips to our agents and investors and syndicators that want to start doing this stuff that you learned from that might help them.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I talk to people about, as well as really have been burned in my brain over the years from my coaches and mentors, is having a vision plan and knowing my why. I mean, yes. Without having a roadmap or a vision of what you're trying to accomplish, you'll end up going down 20 rabbit holes and you'll never do anything. And I did that when I first started because I didn't know enough. I didn't know what I didn't know. So I just went out there and was trying to do everything. And it took me longer. And I think of how much information and opportunity is available today just from, the internet and social media that I can go out there and find. I think that's a big one, is having that vision and just really understanding why, because you're going to run into bumps. You're going to have setbacks. Life is going to grab you and throw you down a rabbit hole that you didn't expect. But if you have a big enough why and you have a vision and you've got a plan of why you're actually trying to buy a multifamily or whatever it is, you'll be so much better prepared to be able to weather life's challenges and bumps. And you'll be able to get around, get through, get over, get under those roadblocks when they appear, because it's not a matter of if that happens, it's a matter of when. And so that, I think, is number one. Number two, without exception, is a coach or a mentor, is finding people who are where you want to be and are willing to share and help you in some way, shape, or form. And I've probably had, I don't even know, 15 different coaches and mentors in the last 25 years. And I have invested a lot of time, energy, and effort into finding those relationships, whether it's business or personal or health or whatever it might be. But I can't say enough about finding those people, because shortcutting, what is out there, I don't need to reinvent the wheel, and I want someone to help me with that. And so that's probably number two. And I think the third one, if I had to pick one, would be it's really making a commitment, a commitment to
Amen.
The time that you can spend into something and the resources you have to commit. And I don't mean committing for 2 months or 3 months. I mean, put something down in writing and make it 12 months or 18 months, something long enough where you can actually see, things happening. Because, this isn't a get-rich-quick scheme deal. This business takes work, but the people who are committed, I have found through my experience, are the ones who can get in and they just take the action. The results will happen because of the action, but you got to be able to take the action long enough to see the results.
Well, that's awesome. I think those are very helpful. You've given a lot of good feedback on how new investors can get started, and even experienced investors. You've really put it down on the table there, being real about what you've gone through and how you've had success. And anybody can do this if they're committed. They got a plan, and they just got to work the plan, right? That's all they got to do.
Yep.
So what are some of the things that you're working on right now? How can people get a hold of you?
Well, probably the biggest thing is I'm really focusing on off-market deals. I'm in hunter mode, and I am turning over a lot of rocks. I know in my market right now and for the last few years that, the cap rates are so low, and the hunger and appetite for investors to find multifamily property is fierce. And, so working through brokers and MLS, I have not found the opportunities. And so I've really focused my time in my networks, in, cold calling investor, multifamily type folks and direct mail, but really just I'm in hunter mode right now, and I plan to be there until the market tells me to do otherwise. And the best way to get a hold of me, if anyone ever has questions, I love sharing and helping others as best I can. My direct phone number is 608-852-4403, and people can reach me at email at my full name. It's Chris Hake, CHRISHAKE @gmail.com.
I hope you enjoyed this interview. For more information on Chris Hake, please email him at chrishake@gmail.com or call him at 608-852-4403. Visit thevaluehuntacademy.com to get more information on syndication training. We got lots of stuff for you. So thanks for taking your time and listening to this interview. For any other questions or comments or ideas, please email me at craig@valuehuntacademy.com.